The periscope showed lights where there shouldn't be any. We were 400 miles from the nearest coast, in the middle of the North Atlantic, surfacing for a routine communications check. Through the scope, I should have seen nothing but black water and empty horizon. Instead, I saw a city. Not a ship, not an oil platform, not a hallucination born from too many weeks underwater. A city. Towers of light stretching from the water to the sky. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. "Sir," I said quietly, keeping my eye pressed to the scope, "you need to see this." Commander Hayes crossed the control room in 3 strides. I stepped aside, watching his face as he looked through the periscope. His expression didn't change, but his hands tightened on the handles. "Bearing?" he asked. 045, range approximately 2,000 yards. Depth under keel, 12,000 feet, sir. We're over the Puerto Rico Trench. Hayes stared through the scope for a full minute. Then he rotated the periscope 360 degrees, checking every angle. When he stepped back, his face was pale. "Dive the boat," he said. "Emergency dive, now." We dropped to 600 feet in under 3 minutes, but as we descended, the lights followed us down, and that's when I understood. Whatever we'd seen wasn't on the surface, it was under it, and it had been waiting. My name is David Mercer. I served as navigation officer aboard the USS Pittsburgh, a Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine. For 6 months, I plotted courses through the darkest parts of the Atlantic Ocean, navigating by stars I couldn't see and landmarks that existed only on classified charts. The Navy trains you for a lot of scenarios: equipment failures, hull breaches, enemy contact, fire, flooding, reactor incidents. They drill you until your responses are automatic, until you can function through panic and exhaustion. They don't train you for impossible things. The Pittsburgh was on a classified patrol, mapping acoustic signatures in the deep Atlantic. Our official mission was oceanographic research, studying thermal layers, current patterns, submarine canyon topography, the kind of boring scientific work that justified our 2-month deployment in the middle of nowhere. The real mission was different. We were hunting. 6 months earlier, a British research submarine had detected something in the Puerto Rico Trench. Not a ship, not an oil platform, not a hallucination born from too many weeks underwater. A massive acoustic anomaly. A return so large it made their equipment malfunction. They'd filed a report, classified it, and forgotten about it, until 3 more submarines detected the same thing. Different locations, different depths, but always over the trench. Always accompanied by equipment malfunctions, radio interference, compass deviations, and lights. Every crew reported lights in the deep water. Bioluminescence, the Navy said officially. Deep sea organisms responding to the submarine's presence. Nothing to worry about. But bioluminescence doesn't appear on radar, and it doesn't interfere with navigation systems, so they sent us. We'd been on station for 3 weeks when we detected the first signal. Not on sonar, on radio. A transmission from 6,000 feet below the surface, where nothing with a radio transmitter should exist. Lieutenant Chen was manning the communications console when it happened. 0340 hours, middle of the graveyard watch. Most of the crew was asleep. The submarine running on minimal power, drifting silently through the black water. "Sir," Chen said, his voice cutting through the quiet, "I'm receiving a transmission." Hayes looked up from the chart table. "Source? Unknown. It's not encrypted. Plain signal, UHF frequency. But sir, the bearing suggests it's coming from below us." "How far below?" Chen checked his display. "Approximately 6,000 feet, maybe deeper." That was impossible. Radio waves don't travel well through water. That's why submarines use extremely low-frequency systems or trail wire antennas to the surface. A UHF signal from that depth shouldn't reach us at all. "Content?" Hayes asked. "It's not voice, sir. It's a pattern, repeating sequence. 3 tones, then 5, then 7. I felt my chest tighten. Prime numbers, just like the reports from the other submarines. Hayes picked up the sound-powered phone. "Sonar, Con, are you tracking any contacts below us?" "Negative, sir. Water column is clear, just ambient ocean noise. Run active sonar, full power. I want to know what's down there." The ping resonated through the hull, a powerful pulse of sound waves traveling down through the black water. In the sonar room, technicians watched their screens, waiting for the echo to return. It took 8 seconds. When the return came, 3 men swore simultaneously. "Multiple contacts," the sonar supervisor reported, his voice tight. "Sir, I'm showing over 50 distinct returns, all clustered together at 6,300 feet. Size, contacts are showing as large, very large. Classification? Unknown. Acoustic signature doesn't match any known vessel or biological source. Sir, they're arranged in a geometric pattern, perfect hexagon, approximately 2 miles across." Hayes and I exchanged glances. Submarines don't arrange themselves in geometric patterns. Whales don't either. "Maintain passive monitoring," Hayes ordered. "Chen, is that transmission still active?" "Yes, sir. It's getting stronger. Wait, it's changing. New pattern. 3 pulses, 5 pulses, 7, 11, 13. It's counting in primes, showing us it understands mathematics." The control room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Whatever was down there wasn't just making noise, it was communicating, deliberately. "Sir," Chen interrupted, "the transmission is modulating. I think it's trying to replicate our active sonar ping, like it's learning our frequency." A chill ran down my spine. We'd just announced our presence with that ping, and whatever was 6,000 feet below us was now studying us, learning from us. "Secure from active sonar," Hayes ordered. "All stations rig for ultra-quiet. Navigation, plot course heading 270, speed 4 knots. Let's create some distance." As we turned away, I watched the depth gauge. We were at 450 feet, standard patrol depth, well within safe operating limits. The contacts were at 6,300 feet, far below crush depth for any known submarine, but they were moving, rising. Within 10 minutes, the contacts had climbed to 5,000 feet. Within 20, they were at 3,000. They weren't chasing us. They were ascending deliberately, maintaining that perfect hexagonal formation, and the radio transmission kept getting stronger. "Sir, recommend we surface," I said quietly. "Get a message to Fleet Command. This is beyond our mission parameters." Hayes nodded. "Agreed. Prepare to surface. Communications, draft an OPREP 3 Pinnacle message. Classification, cosmic. Cosmic top secret. The highest classification level in the entire U.S. military. We were reporting something so serious that only a handful of people in the entire government were cleared to know about it. We began the ascent protocol. Slowly, carefully, the Pittsburgh rose toward the surface. At 200 feet, we stopped to scan for surface traffic. The ocean was empty. No ships, no aircraft, just us and whatever was rising from below. "Scope depth," Hayes ordered. We crept up to 60 feet. The periscope broke the surface, and I rotated it through a complete circle, checking the horizon. That's when I saw them. Lights. Hundreds of them. Towers of luminescence rising from the water, stretching up into the night sky like skyscrapers made of pale blue fire. They weren't solid. They flickered and pulsed, semi-transparent, but unmistakably structured, arranged in patterns, geometric, deliberate. "God in heaven," Hayes whispered, looking through the scope. "What are we seeing?" I had no answer. The lights formed a perfect circle around us, maybe 2 miles across. Each tower was identical, a column of light approximately 50 feet in diameter, rising hundreds of feet into the air. Between them, arcs of luminescence connected tower to tower, forming a network,
a web, a structure, and at the center of the circle, directly ahead of us, the towers converged, all of them bending inward toward a single point, where the light was so intense I had to squint even through the dimmed periscope optics. "Range to nearest contact?" Hayes asked. I checked the rangefinder. 1,200 yards. "Sir, the pattern is closing. The outer ring is contracting." He pulled back from the scope. "Surface the boat, all the way. I want everyone on deck with cameras. If we're seeing this, we're documenting it." The Pittsburgh broke the surface with a groan of metal and rush of water. The conning tower watch climbed up through the conning tower hatch, and I followed them, camera in hand. The night air hit me like a slap. Cold, salt-tinged, but somehow charged, like the atmosphere before a thunderstorm. And the lights, seeing them with bare eyes was different. Through the periscope, they looked almost technological. Up here, they looked alive. The towers pulsed with a rhythm, slow, steady, almost like breathing. The light wasn't uniform. It moved within the columns, flowing upward in spirals and currents. And the sound, I hadn't expected sound. A low hum, felt more than heard. It resonated through the hull, through my body, through my bones. The frequency made my teeth ache and my vision blur at the edges. "Sir," one of the lookouts said, voice shaking, "they're forming something. Look at the center." The converging towers weren't just meeting, they were constructing. The light was coalescing, taking shape. First a dome, then walls, then windows, structures that looked almost like buildings but weren't quite right. The proportions were wrong. The angles didn't match anything built by human hands. We were watching a city being assembled from light and water and something else I had no name for. The radio transmission changed again. This time it wasn't numbers, it was coordinates. Latitude and longitude, broadcast in perfect numeric sequence, the coordinates of our exact position. They knew where we were, and they wanted us to know they knew it. "Emergency dive!" Hayes's voice cracked like a whip. "Dive, dive, dive!" The klaxon blared. The lookouts scrambled below. I took one last look at the impossible city forming around us, then dropped through the hatch and sealed it behind me. The Pittsburgh nosed down, angling into the depths. 100 feet, 200 feet, 400 feet. We dove past our normal patrol depth, past the recommended safe diving depth, heading for the thermal layer at 800 feet, where we could hide. "Sonar, report," Hayes demanded. "Contacts are diving with us, sir. They're maintaining formation, still in that hexagonal formation, but it's contracting. We're inside it now. Speed? Estimated 15 knots. They're matching our dive rate perfectly. Impossible. At 800 feet, the pressure is crushing. At the speeds they're moving, hydrodynamic drag should tear anything apart. But the contacts stayed with us, surrounding us, herding us deeper. Level off at 800, Hayes ordered. All stop. Let's see what they do." We hung suspended in the black water, engines silent, barely breathing. The contacts stopped too, holding position around us, maintaining that geometric pattern. The radio transmission changed again. This time, it wasn't numbers, it was voices. Not human voices, not quite, but close enough to understand, close enough to know they were speaking to us. In English, saying things they shouldn't know, saying our names.
David Mercer. My name, spoken in a hollow, echoing tone that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Navigation officer, born March 14th, 1989. Sister named Amanda. Mother died of cancer 3 years ago. I grabbed the communications console to steady myself. Chen stared at me, eyes wide. The voice continued, cycling through the crew. Thomas Hayes, commander, married, 2 daughters, fears he'll never see them again. Hayes's face went white. James Chen, communications officer, wants to leave the Navy, wants to go home. It knew us, all of us, things we'd never told anyone, thoughts we'd barely admitted to ourselves. "Navigation Officer Mercer," the voice said, focusing back on me. "You want to understand. We will show you." The lights returned. Not outside the submarine, inside. Pale blue luminescence bleeding through the hull like it was porous, like steel and titanium were no barrier at all. The control room filled with that cold light, and within it, shapes, figures, tall, impossibly thin, moving with fluid grace through the solid matter of our submarine. Not quite transparent, not quite solid, existing in some state between light and substance. One of them approached me. It had no face, no features I could distinguish, but I knew it was looking at me, studying me the way I might study a specimen under a microscope. Then it reached out and touched my forehead. I saw everything. Every submarine that had ever crossed above the trench, every ship that had sunk there, every creature that lived in those crushing depths, centuries of observation, of waiting, of watching the surface world develop and grow and spread across the oceans. They'd been there the whole time, below us, watching, learning, waiting for us to develop the technology to go deep enough to find them. The vision faded. I collapsed against the navigation console, gasping. The figures of light remained, surrounding us, but they weren't threatening. They were curious, like dolphins swimming alongside a ship, studying the strange surface dwellers in their metal cage. "Sir," Chen said shakily, "the transmission is changing again. It's showing us images, acoustic imaging data. They're mapping the entire ocean floor, showing us structures, cities, not light this time, actual structures, covering thousands of square miles of the trench floor." The displays lit up with the data. Chen was right. The sonar returns showed massive architectural formations lining the deepest parts of the Puerto Rico Trench. Geometric patterns, towers, arcologies, structures that dwarfed anything humans had ever built, hidden under pressures that would crush our strongest submarines like aluminum cans. "How long?" Hayes asked quietly. "How long have they been down there?" The voice answered. "Before your species learned fire, before you left the trees, we were here first. We will be here after." "What do you want?" I asked. "To warn you, the deep water is changing, temperature rising, chemistry shifting. Your surface world is poisoning ours. We are leaving the trenches, moving to shallower water. You will see us more often now. Do not fear, do not attack. We mean no harm, but we will not die quietly." The figures began to fade. The light dimmed. The radio transmission dropped to a whisper. "Remember," the voice said, "one final time. The ocean is not empty. It never was." The lights winked out. The contacts vanished from sonar. In 30 seconds, we were alone again in the black water. No evidence they'd ever been there except our testimony and our shaking hands and our instruments that recorded things that shouldn't exist. We surfaced an hour later. The ocean was empty. No lights, no structures, nothing but normal black water under a starlit sky. The fleet command response was immediate. Return to port, full communications blackout, all data classified cosmic top secret, no discussion with anyone, not even other crew members. At Norfolk, we were debriefed separately. Individual interviews, psychological evaluations, threats disguised as reassurances. The data was confiscated, the logs were sealed. The mission never happened. But I know what I saw. We all do. The Navy's official position is that we experienced a mass hallucination, possibly caused by carbon dioxide buildup in the air recycling system. Equipment malfunctions explain the sonar returns. Sleep deprivation explained the rest. That was 8 months ago. Last week, I was pulled back to active duty. Emergency recall. No explanation, just orders to report to a classified facility in Newport, Rhode Island. When I arrived, Commander Hayes was there,
So was Chen. So were the sonar operators, the entire crew of the Pittsburgh, and representatives from a dozen other submarines, all with the same story, all reporting cities of light, all encountering figures that moved through solid steel, all hearing voices that knew their names. The briefing was short. The ocean is changing. The deep water entities are evacuating their habitats, moving to shallower depths. Every week, more submarines report contacts, more ships see lights beneath their hulls, more coastal populations report strange bioluminescence in their harbors. They're coming up, all of them, because we've made the deep water inhabitable, and they have nowhere else to go. The Navy is calling it a first contact scenario, establishing protocols, preparing responses, trying to figure out how to communicate with something that's been living in our oceans since humans existed. I'm being sent back out. New mission, new submarine. This time, our orders aren't to observe or avoid. They're to make contact, deliberately, to establish communication with the entities before they surface in waters where commercial ships and fishing fleets operate, before someone panics and does something stupid, before first contact becomes first conflict. We leave in 72 hours.
I'm recording this in my quarters at the base. If something happens to me out there, if the Pittsburgh incident happens again, but goes wrong this time, someone needs to know. The ocean isn't empty. It never was. And what lives down there is coming up. Not to invade, not to attack, just to survive. And I don't know if we're ready for that. They briefed us on the protocols yesterday. What to do if we encounter the lights, how to respond if they enter the submarine again, what frequencies to broadcast to show peaceful intent. But they also briefed us on weapons release procedures, just in case. That's what terrifies me. Not the entities, not the lights. The fact that we're going down there with torpedoes and nuclear warheads, with authorization to use them if we perceive a threat. We spent 70 years preparing for submarine warfare against human enemies. We developed sensors to detect them, weapons to destroy them, tactics to outmaneuver them. But these entities aren't submarines. They don't follow our physics. They don't respond to our weapons. And they've been in the ocean so long, they probably think of it as theirs, not ours. What happens when we encounter them again? What happens if someone panics? What happens if a weapons officer decides those lights surrounding his submarine are hostile and launches a torpedo? I don't know. And that's what keeps me awake at night. The city I saw through that periscope wasn't built by humans. It wasn't meant for humans, but it was magnificent. Structures of light and energy that made our submarines look like primitive dugout canoes. Intelligence so far beyond ours that they could read our thoughts, know our fears, understand everything about us, while we understood nothing about them. And we're going down there with weapons. I think about that voice. We mean no harm, but we will not die quietly. I think about what that means. Entities that can phase through solid steel, that can build cities from light and water, that have survived in the deepest, darkest, most hostile environment on Earth for millions of years. What would they do if they decided we were a threat? What could we do to stop them? It's 0400 hours. In 2 hours, I board the USS Columbia. Same mission profile as the Pittsburgh. Same area of operations. Same impossible depths. But this time, we're not running. We're making contact. Deliberately. Openly. I hope they remember us. I hope they understand we're trying to communicate, not attack. I hope we don't do something that turns first contact into last contact. If you're reading this, then something went wrong. Then the lights came back, and this time we didn't surface. Or we did surface, but we brought something back with us. Something that shouldn't exist in the surface world, but does now, because we forced it up from the depths.
The ocean is not empty. It never was, and what lives down there has been patient for a very long time. But patience has limits. We're about to find out what happens when we exceed them. Author's note: Navigation Officer David Mercer failed to return from his scheduled mission aboard USS Columbia. The submarine was lost with all hands on March 15, 2024. Official cause: catastrophic hull failure at depth. This recording was recovered from his personal effects. Coastal populations across the Atlantic seaboard have reported unusual bioluminescent displays appearing nightly since March 20th. NOAA attributes the phenomenon to algae blooms. Fishermen report lights beneath their vessels. Cargo ships report navigation instruments malfunctioning over deep water. And submarine crews, when they can be convinced to talk off the record, all tell the same story. The lights are everywhere now, in every ocean, every trench, every deep water canyon. They're not hiding anymore. They're not waiting anymore. They're here.